We have been in the spreadsheets and have statted out 292 players in the NFL this year. So today we are bringing you our 9 most shocking findings from our 2025 draft guide, where you can find our full statted out projections on each player this season. And fellas, this is going to be so much fun because we each brought 3 players who we are either much higher on than we expected or much lower on than we expected, and might actually be shocking for some of our listeners out there as well. So Cameron, I will start with you. This is going to be fun. We'll go back and forth a little bit, debate a bit, but RJ Harvey is your first player. Tell us about how he came out in your projections for this year.
Yeah, running back 26 is a lot lower, admittedly, than I thought he was going to be. I was not ready for him to be this low, but especially the way we're doing stats, we're looking at the amount of pass plays we think, rush plays we think. I think the Broncos are actually going to run the ball considerably more than they did last season. They have a top 5 offensive line, probably in the NFL. My issue is I see a near 50-50 split when it comes to rushing attempts between him and J.K. Dobbins. I just think that what J.K. did last season showed, hey, he's got enough juice in the tank. He's not, we're not throwing him out there getting 4.1 yards per carry. Like, the dude can do something. I have J.K. statted for 175 carries, and I have RJ Harvey statted for about 167. Well, not about exactly 167. So considerably less than I know Lucas does. I know Lucas is the one that's going to have the biggest issue with this because we talked about it a little bit. But I do have RJ Harvey being the main back of the receiving role. I think that he is going to get considerably more work. For me, I just think it's going to be very much a 1A, 1B. I think at the end of the season, you're going to be a lot happier with RJ Harvey. I think he's going to kind of come on as rookie running backs do. But for me, I just don't think there's a direct path anymore to that running back one success. And that's what kept him lower in my rankings.
So I find it striking that you actually have J.K. Dobbins taking a considerable amount of rush attempts this year. Because where I still have Harvey hitting 225, I only have J.K. Dobbins hitting 129. And I think the biggest factor in that for me is that I never expected RJ Harvey was going to be this 260 carry bell cow back for Sean Payton. I always knew somebody else was going to come in here. Now, could I be on the, I'll call it like the overweight end of the rush attempts for RJ Harvey? Sure. So Ty, I'll actually loop you in here then. Where do you have these splits?
Maybe the best way to say it is by season's end, I do expect like a near 50-50 touch between J.K. Dobbins and RJ Harvey. But the difference is that I think RJ Harvey is just going to get the more higher value touches.
Yep.
Because I've got RJ Harvey getting 20 more receptions than J.K. Dobbins and nearly 200 more yards in the receiving game. So though that kind of efficiency or that kind of usage, I'll call it, because Sean Payton has called RJ Harvey his joker. Like, that was the guy that he was talking about. That has some merit to it because we've been talking about who's going to be the joker in this Denver offense really for the past 2 years. And we've gone from Greg Dulcich and now we've ended on RJ Harvey. So again, I think nearly 50-50 split the entirety of the year because J.K. Dobbins showed that he's good enough to handle a rushing workload, but it's going to be the receiving work that's ultimately the difference why RJ Harvey is going to finish higher than J.K. Dobbins, according to my projections.
Yeah, so give me like a little bit of context as well around this, because it's one thing to say RJ Harvey is your running back 26, but despite having like literally J.K. Dobbins having more rush attempts than him this year, like, to me, this is actually still higher than I expected. That being the case, considering the gap I have between the two, and RJ Harvey came out, I believe it was my running back 20. So like, what other running backs in the range are we looking at here?
In the range of RJ Harvey right now, I probably should have done this one too. Travis Etienne is one spot ahead of him.
I mean, he's in my top 30. So
James Cook, DeAndre Swift, Chuba Hubbard, all right in front of him. So yeah, I look at it and I look at guys like, and do not hear what I'm not saying. I am not calling him Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm not calling him Alvin Kamara. I'm not calling him Devon Achane. But I look at all of those guys and I see, hey, they have a vet who wasn't extremely efficient play ahead of them and get more carries than they did the rookie year. And I see that with RJ Harvey. The reason I'm not propelling him to that top 10 status like we got with a Gibbs, with a Kamara, with Achane and points per game is I just don't think he gets the same receiving upside as those guys get. So that's where I'm kind of coming from on him getting less carries. I do have him 4.8 yards per carry is what I have Harvey at.
Oh,
That
okay.
could be low, right? Like I said, very good Broncos offensive line.
I mean,
He
debatably
could
top 5 in the league. Yeah.
could come out and surprise, show up with 5+, and obviously that moves it up. When I look at it, though, I will say this is the lowest I would feel comfortable putting Harvey. Right? I'm low on the Broncos as a whole. Bo Nix, I'm lower on. Evan Ingram, I'm slightly lower on. So I think that also adds into it of I just don't think they're going to score at the rate that they were at the end of last season.
So there's an offensive dynamic you're considering here,
Hmm.
along with the splits that you're projecting between
Yep.
Dobbins and Harvey. And I think how I see it is for me, this is a 50-40 kind of a thing between the two. And I think RJ Harvey is still going to come out on top at the end of that. But before we dive into the rest of the projections, we got 8 more that we're coming at you with. We know you're prepping for your fantasy football drafts already. That's why our draft guide just dropped literally today as you're listening to this. But if you want more fantasy tips this offseason, this is the place you're going to want to be. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on that notification bell as well, because we know you're trying to beat your friends just like we're trying to beat each other in fantasy football. We hope we can have some fun, a little debate, and provide some of the insights that we are finding this offseason with you to help you also beat your league mates this year. So we'd love to have you hang around with us this offseason. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Ty, look, another rookie running back. Ashton Jeanty. I'm gonna let you talk first because I'm not sure how people are gonna stomach this one. So go ahead. Share with the people why Ashton Jeanty is your shocking projection here.
I knew that I was going to get some judgment right off the bat for this one, but this is partially because I am higher, and I think that there are a couple running backs that go after Ashton Jeanty right now in drafts that have a very similar case to upside. I'm talking about like Josh Jacobs. I'm talking about Chase Brown. I'm even talking about Jonathan Taylor. Like, those are guys that I see similar cases for upside, and I buy into it either because I've seen it or I buy into the offenses more, kind of what you were saying, Lucas, with Denver and the offensive dynamic. I can buy in with Green Bay. I can buy in with Cincinnati. I just have my struggles with Vegas in general. But the other part of this is that I just don't know how many of Ashton Jeanty's touches this year are going to be what I just called for RJ Harvey, high value touches, right? I'm talking receptions. I'm talking red zone carries. I'm talking carries that end up as touchdowns, explosive runs. That's my big question mark, is just how many of those are we going to get? And I'm not going to sit down and tally every single time I see it from Ashton Jeanty compared to all the other running backs and have a report by year's end of the difference. But again, it goes back to this kind of concern that I have for Vegas, is that, yeah, they've got pieces in motion now. Like, you brought in Geno Smith, Brock Bowers going into year 2. I still think that this is just a work in progress of a Vegas offense, and that this is nowhere near a, wheels up and let's go kind of offense. And not to say that I don't think Jeanty isn't going to get volume. Like, this is the playmaker on this team. Volume is king. He will get those touches. But historical data can back this up a little bit, that just because you're getting a ton of volume and a ton of touches, it doesn't exactly mean you're going to finish at the top of fantasy scoring. Rookies with at least 300 touches averaged 268 total PPR points. That was running back 8 last year. Rookies with at least 275 touches finished with an average of 250 points. That was running back 12 last year. Were there running backs that finished above that? Yes, absolutely. Like, it happens every single year. So can Jeanty finish above the averages? Sure. Yeah, you can believe it. People are taking him as a top 5 back already on Underdog. So they clearly think that he can. My worry is just, again, not enough high value touches that can get him into the top 5, where I know that I can get it with a McCaffrey and a Gibbs and a, why am I blanking on the top 5 guys? Saquon and Bijan. Like,
Bijan, yeah.
Right. Like, that's really the main concern. I still think Ashton Jeanty is a great pick. I still think there's not really a bust to Ashton Jeanty this year, if that makes sense. But I think this is just a value discussion of a guy going in the first round versus a guy that can go in the second round and still not lose you your league.
So I do want to push back on something you said. How many targets do you have Ashton Jeanty projected for?
I haven't projected. Great question. Let me pull this up. I haven't projected for 48, 46.
Oh. Okay, so I think that's absurdly low, because who else is it going to be in this passing game? I'm sorry, Ashton Jeanty is a much more explosive playmaker than Jacoby Myers is. I know Jacoby Myers is going to get his own because he's the wide receiver one. You have to throw the ball to the wide receiver, but I think they use him a very, very strong amount out of the backfield this year. Maybe before I tip my hand, Cam, where do you have him at for targets?
56.
Oh, geez, I'm way higher than both of you.
Where do you have him?
I've got him up. I've got him up at 74 targets this year.
Oh man.
Wow.
So
he had 83 total at Boise.
So when you're Las Vegas and you need to create explosives, though, you got to get the ball into this guy's hands however possible. And could I be high? Absolutely. I'd be willing to bring that down closer to, as the offseason progresses, as I maybe shift how I view this offense, how I view Ashton Jeanty's role. I could easily come down to probably that 60 range. But when I look at it's Brock Bowers. You're going to keep feeding him. And frankly, if I'm the Raiders, I want to run the brakes off of Ashton Jeanty. I want to get the ball in his hands as much as I can. So 48 shocked me. I know you're at 50, Cameron. So you can debate me now too, because I'm clearly the one that's pushing the Ashton Jeanty receiving back agenda here compared to you two.
Yeah, just for reference, last year Bijan Robinson had 72 targets. So we're talking fourth in the NFL in targets. Which I got him at 306 carries. So I know I have him significantly higher in carries.
You've got him much higher.
Say it again.
306.
Okay, I heard 360.
I heard 360 as well.
I have him
okay,
for
I'm not
7,000 carries. But no, he's my running back 6.5 PPR. And I would assume, Lucas, we're probably pretty close on the amount of touches he's going to end up getting.
Yep.
It's just coming in a different avenue, essentially. Like you're thinking it's going to be a little bit more through the air to give him more open space. I think they're just going to use him how he was traditionally used at Boise. And Ty is just kind of the thought that he sucks and like he shouldn't have been drafted this high. And we don't know. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe you're right. Maybe he's Bijan, but there is no Tyler Algier or Arthur Smith here. So that's kind of where I land.
Yes. Well, so that's the other thing I'm factoring in here. If you're going to throw it to the running back position, are you really going to throw it to Raheem Mostert? Are you really going to throw it to Sincere McCormick? Who else? Dylan Laube? I think Dylan Laube's going to get some run this. I mean, that's where I'm coming from. We're like, this team needs explosives. Chip Kelly has to know that as a guy who used to run one of the fastest pace offenses in the NFL. Let's get some explosive. Let's get the ball into Jeanty's hands. He's our second best, just because we haven't seen him play an NFL snap yet. He could end up being the team's best player. I would rather over project that than under project that. I guess that's where I'm coming from. And Ty, you're just on the other perspective here. I'll let you finish it out.
It's not that I don't think Ashton Jeanty is going to be productive at all. He's still a top 10 guy.
Oh, that's how I'm going to paint you the whole offseason. Ty hates Ashton Jeanty.
Might as well just put it up like right there. Just Ashton
he
Jeanty
thought
hater.
He wasn't a top
right
in the 2025 draft.
Yeah, I maybe best way to say it, I just find myself passing on Jeanty right now at cost because I can't pull the trigger on first round when I know that, again, right now Devon Achane goes right after him when, again, Chase Brown goes nearly a round and a half later in the third, and Josh Jacobs is also a round later. Like, again, guys that I find much more easier paths to becoming a top 8 or a top 5 guy than Jeanty.
Which, and if that's the case you want to make here, like that, your projection reflects that and you're standing on it. And like that has to be respected at some point. So we'll put a bow on Ashton Jeanty there. Look, I'll talk about the guy who goes one pick ahead of Ashton Jeanty. Malik Nabers came out as the wide receiver 10. in my
Ooh.
rankings.
Ooh.
I have AJ Brown ahead of him. I have T. Higgins ahead of Malik Nabers.
Whoa.
Yeah, so
Who
maybe the
else
more
is out of
shocking
your top 10? Holy cow.
Oh, it's only those are the only ones that flip. Like otherwise everybody else is in there. You know, Brian Thomas is up there, Amon-Ra is in there, Nico Collins is up there. It's really that Malik Nabers just shifts down behind all those guys, and you throw in AJ Brown and T. Higgins ahead of him. So that look, let me explain myself first. All right. Even at the tail end of last season, when we got the circus quarterback carousel of the New York Giants last year, after Daniel Jones was cut from the team, I mean, Malik Nabers was still only the wide receiver 9 in fantasy points per game. Now, will he command a very generous amount of targets this year? Yeah, he absolutely will. 163 targets I have him projected for. But the problem is I don't love the fit with Russell Wilson. A guy who's going to moonball downfield. Look, I know Malik Nabers can go. I know he can. But I want Malik Nabers in yak situations. And this is frustrating because I want to have Malik Nabers higher. How good is Jackson Dart going to be when he inevitably starts? I'm not sold on the quarterback situation there. I have Malik Nabers being an alpha. Maybe I could bring his catch rate up a little bit. I'm just personally not in love with the Russell Wilson moonballs down the sideline. I would rather get Malik Nabers on, you know, these big digs, these crossers over the middle to get him into these yak situations. Is he going to be a high reception volume guy with Russell Wilson? I don't know. Will he be that with Jackson Dart? I don't know. All I know is that I looked at the end of last season with his quarterback carousel, and it didn't put up elite fantasy numbers like we got at the start of the season with Daniel Jones. So I'm just saying I have room for Malik Nabers to not totally live up to wide receiver 5 and actually have that be closer to his ceiling than the average for him this year, if that makes sense. So I don't have like strong analytical case here. It's more of I just have enough questions about this Giants offense. And maybe I'm too low on Malik Nabers' catch percentage, but I'll leave it there and I'll let you two interject.
I just can't believe it. I mean, I have Malik Nabers all the way up at wide receiver 8. So like you are so far away. No. So I am like, I have Nabers as second most targets, tied for second most receptions. He's top 7 in yards. My issue is I just don't think he's going to score a ton. And when we get up into wide receiver 5, 6, 7, you know, and higher, if you're not a double-digit touchdown guy, it's really hard to make a case
really
to
hard
you at wide receiver 4. And that's what it comes down to is Jackson Dart. I just don't think he's going to throw a lot of touchdowns. And I think Brian Dable's job's going to be on the line. So I think Dart's going to come out a lot earlier than they want him to, than he's ready for. That's my biggest concern with Malik Nabers is he's going to get the volume. He's going to get the, you know, because he's so good. I just don't know if he's going to score the touchdowns to push him higher. Right. Like, and you know, I say wide receiver 8 and I currently have him 11 points from being wide receiver 4. Like it's so crowded for me up top with Malik Nabers to Brian Thomas at wide receiver 4 that it could go so many different ways, and touchdowns is just going to be such a big part of that.
Well, and Malik Nabers' 64 catch percentage last year, just to come back to what I was talking about. I mean, I've got him sitting at 63, right? So I think he's going to sit in that same range, but the double-digit touchdowns is what's going to be killer for him. I only have him projected for 7.8 touchdowns, so basically 8 touchdowns this year. Ty, you kind of gawked when I mentioned the not loving the fit with Moonball Russell Wilson. Again, it's a personal preference for me. I know Malik Nabers can hit the go route and connect with Russ on a few deep balls. I get that, but I feel like at some point you have to factor in the inevitable of Jackson Dart.
Sure, that makes sense. I think the way that I look at Malik Nabers is that just because Russell Wilson is in town doesn't mean that it's purely more, I shouldn't say purely, but it's more vertical routes or more verticality from Nabers this year. I think he's just a do-it-all guy, that it doesn't matter who the quarterback is. And maybe the best way to kind of say this is I see him in a light of Justin Jefferson where it's quarterback proof, and he's got a coach that, again, he did it last year with worse quarterback play, would do whatever it took to get him the ball. So I still don't mind Malik Nabers. I bet you don't mind Malik Nabers, but maybe the question I do want to ask you, Lucas, of this wide receiver 10 projection, is this more floor? Is this more ceiling? Somewhere in between? Which one of the three is it for you?
This feels like the in-between, where I think I worry that wide receiver 5 is more of his ceiling. And I think wide receiver 10 is on the lower end of where, like, I think the worst outcome for Malik Nabers this year is like the wide receiver 15. Like, there's no way he drops below the wide receiver 15. So for me, this feels much more like I'm splitting the middle, where could he outscore Amon-Ra this year? Totally. New offensive coordinator, a lot of changes happening with Detroit there. Sure, he could totally do that. Could Amon-Ra have a down year? Could Brian Thomas Jr. actually face more competition than maybe we all are projecting with Travis Hunter? Sure, totally. T. Higgins, he's bound to miss a few games, right? Like, I statted out T. Higgins on a full 17 game projection, which, we're pretty sure that probably isn't going to happen. So, like, there's room for Malik Nabers to come back up, finish somewhere in this wide receiver 6 to 8, 5 to 8 range. Just how it came out, flatten my projections. He's sitting right around 10, but that isn't to say he's not within striking distance of all those guys in front of me. I just want to make sure I give you the right number before I spit it out. I mean, we're looking at Malik Nabers, who is literally he's within 10 points of the wide receiver 7. So he's right within that striking range anyway. So it's a bunch of guys who are clumped close together. A touchdown would tip the scales on all of them, right? That's all it would take. So it's a tight knit tier of guys there. But Malik Nabers just comes out on the bottom of that. I just worry about how good the New York Giants offense is going to be this year. I can't say their defense, because their defense is I think their defense is going to surprise a lot of people, but can the offense put up the points to maintain pace with some of these teams? We'll have to see on that end. Yeah. Let's start in. Go ahead. Are you going to chime in with one more thing?
I was just going to say, I think wide receiver 10's his floor. I just don't see a world where he's lower than that with the volume and how good he is. And he's literally it. He is it in that offense. So that's the only thing I wanted to say is I think you have him as floor personally.
Which I'm not going to argue with anybody on, because Malik Nabers is fabulous. I think he probably finishes ahead of wide receiver 10. I'm probably just more bullish on AJ Brown in a bounce back year, where I think the Eagles are going to throw more, right? The T. Higgins one is merely if he plays all 17 games, the wide receiver 4 in fantasy points per game last year. That's all it is. Malik Nabers, has plenty of room to finish well above wide receiver 10. Just how it came on a full 17 game projections.
For sure.
That's all I'm naming with that. We'll start another round here, Cameron. We'll go down the board. Enough of talking about these big boys at the top of the board. This is an interesting one, though, because you're actually higher on Stefon Diggs than I originally expected.
Yeah, me too. But my guy Deepak over on Twitter, I'll throw up his tweet here for y'all to read. But he said about 6 days ago, Stefon Diggs would bet this comeback. Data favors playing week 1, returning to 90% pre-injury by week 5. He was on pace for 1,000 yards in 2024. If I can get 90% of Stefon Diggs, and I think that Drake May is going to take a step forward, 90% of Stefon Diggs is by far the best wide receiver in this wide receiver room. He's the best pass catcher on the team. I don't think it's close if he's 90% of what he's going to be. Even if he's 80%, I still think he's the best player there. I think last year just kind of screwed with our lens where we forgot how good Stefon Diggs is, right? I understand he's older. I understand he's coming off the injury. But unless he truly is done, which I don't think he is, I'm betting on him coming back. He tore in October of last season, right? So this will be almost 11 months, 10 full months for sure, since he got hurt by week 1. That if I'm going to have Drake May take a step forward, it's going to go through Stefon Diggs for me. And I think he's a guy who's going to see 110 to 120 targets. I think he's a guy who's going to see 70 plus receptions. I think he's going to flirt with 1,000 yards. And if there's one thing we know Stefon Diggs is good at, it's running routes. And that really tends to translate down in the red zone. And if he's a guy who can get me 6, 7, 8 touchdowns, I think that's what kind of catapults him up into here. I haven't predicted for 7 touchdowns next season. I think he's a guy who could easily hit more than that. But yeah, this again just comes down to, I think this Patriots offense as a whole takes a step forward. And I think Stefon Diggs is kind of going to be the centerpiece of that passing attack.
So that's where I think you and I disagree on Stefon Diggs, because I have Diggs as my wide receiver 50 right now. Stop! He's going as the wide receiver 45. Stop.
Water and oil.
He's going as the wide receiver 45. I'm not that far off of ADP. All right, I'm within striking distance. I think that's where you and I differ on Stefon Diggs, though. Is I see Diggs as a lead target getter for this team. I don't know if Josh McDaniels is going to make him the engine that helps this passing attack move. My guess is that this offense is a little bit more spread out than giving Stefon Diggs 115 to 120 targets. Ty, where do you land on that? Do you think this this passing attack is through Stefon Diggs?
Yes.
You said that very hesitantly.
Well, because I'm not sold that it's going to be Demario Douglas. I'm not sold it's going to be Kyle Williams. I'm not sold it's Hunter Henry. My point is that like if it's not Diggs, who else, right? So it may be kind of empty targets and maybe empty volume in the sense that like he could get peppered with stuff, but it's going to go relatively nowhere. So it's going to be very low yards, but he's going to get catches. So maybe it's a PPR thing, or if you're in a standard league, you need to talk to your commissioner. But like Diggs is not going to be really in play for you because of that. And I think the selling point for me is just when are we going to get a fully healthy Stefon Diggs back? And I find myself kind of siding more with Cam on this one and Deepak as well. I will trust the medical experts on this one, but if Diggs is ready to go by training camp and there's no restriction, there's no ramp up period or anything like that, it may turn around or I shouldn't say it turns around, but Diggs might. I don't know, Lucas. If Diggs doesn't go up your rankings at that point, I think we need to question your fandom of Drake May.
Stop! I love Drake May. He didn't even come out.
Stop!
He didn't even come out that strong in my projections. I have him ahead of ADP. I have Drake May close to the top 12, but I mean ADP has him at 15. Like, let's not pretend 15 is all that far from 12 either. So I get wanting 90% of Stefon Diggs, but we're not getting 90% of Stefon Diggs at 25 years old. We're getting 90% of Stefon Diggs entering the twilight of his career. So that's the dissonance I'm trying to figure out, is how good is Stefon Diggs at 100% at this point in his career? You're right. The waters got muddied a little bit with his injury with the Texans last year. And maybe I don't have him. Maybe I do have this offense a little too widespread, where I have three other Patriots wide receivers above 80 targets this year. Or sorry, two others. I have Kyle Williams and Hunter Henry above 80 targets as well. I have Stefon Diggs knocking on the door of 100. I have him at 99 targets for this. I just think this offense is going to be a little bit more widespread. I don't know if Josh McDaniels is going to force Stefon Diggs to be the engine that makes this offense chug. So wide receiver 33 feels like really rich for me, considering some of the other guys who I would rather take chances on based on the state of their offenses. But if you think Stefon Diggs is going to be the number one guy there, no questions asked, then stat him out as such, right? And that's clearly what happened for you here, Cameron.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say is last season, playing with Nico Collins and Tank Dell, he was on pace for 136 targets. Season before that, he had 160 targets. I understand they're both different offenses. But you want to talk about a guy an old man who has been playing at maybe 70% of himself, but finished as top 30 wide receiver last 2 seasons on a bad offense. His former teammate, Adam Thielen, has finished top 30 in points per game. And I think we could see at least a similar season from Stefon Diggs this year as we did from Adam Thielen. And I am much more bullish on this Patriots team as a whole.
We'll take a quick break here. We'll leave it on that note. If you want to draft all these players right now, you can totally do that over on Underdog Fantasy. Not take Stefon Diggs as the wide receiver 45, and you can listen to Cameron Draft him at the wide receiver 33.
That is not what I said. That is wrong.
We'll really get these ADPs to shift if you all go ahead and draft based off of our projections for sure. We'll take a quick break. We'll hear all the fun contests they have going on this summer. Today's podcast episode is brought to you by our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Now, we love Underdog. It is the easiest place to play best ball formats, and they even have their own form of player props called Pick'em. You can make up to 20 times your money on a single night by correlating props together. 2 picks will triple your money, 3 will 6 times it, 4 will 10 times it, and 5 plays that all hit will multiply your entry by 20. You can even place insurance on your picks too, so if only 4 of your 5 props hit, you still get 10 times your entry. And if you use our code FELLAS when signing up, Underdog is going to double your first deposit up to $100. Alrighty, we are back. So far, we've talked about RJ Harvey, Ashton Jeanty, Malik Nabers, Stefon Diggs, 4 of our 9 most shocking projections for 2025 fantasy football. Ty, I don't know if this one is shocking. I mean, it is. Don't give me. Let me restart. This one will be shocking, but I honestly think this one is more sad, in my opinion, than it is shocking, because we've loved David Montgomery, but he did not come out high for either you or I in our rankings this year.
No.
At least to start.
Yeah, at least to start. Outside of the top 30 is quite the change of pace for a guy that's finished inside the top 20 the past 2 years. So what would be the reason why I shouldn't say I'm totally out on David Montgomery, but why it's very different for me this year with David Montgomery? It's regression. And it's the big R word, and no one likes it, but it has to be mentioned, and that it is a possibility. And dare I say, it should hit this team. You lose one of the best play callers in the leagues. You lose your all-pro center in your middle of the offensive line, and now you're gonna have 2 first-time starters in the interior of your offensive line. Like, regression should hit your team. And now when it comes to David Montgomery specifically, we're coming off a year where he was top 5 in touchdown rate of all running backs with 50 or more carries and averaging nearly a touchdown per game. So if we're expecting regression, I think that touchdown rate is going to take a hit. And David Montgomery, he had the 3rd most carries inside the 10 last year. If any of those start going over to Jahmyr Gibbs, if Jahmyr Gibbs starts to get the majority of these carries inside the 10, what is the value of David Montgomery then? Like, if he gives you 8-9 touchdowns, cool. But that can only give you so much on a week-to-week basis. So, again, with regression, that should hit this Detroit offense. Not saying that they're going to be complete bums or that they're going to be middle of the pack or anything, but for being the team that was top 3 in scoring last year, I'm not expecting Detroit to be up to not to hit that this year. And the best way that I can describe this with Montgomery, there are too many what ifs that we didn't have before with David Montgomery. And that's why I'm pretty pessimistic on Monty this year.
I mean, you named it right off the top. I really don't even have much to add. I think that regression hits this offense like a truck this year. And not to the extent where Detroit becomes one of the, like a middle of the pack offense in the league. It's the Detroit is no longer a top 3 offense in the league. They're probably going to be closer to 10 than they are 3 this year. And that just means less scoring. It means less opportunities for Monty to hit pay dirt. It means another year of Jahmyr Gibbs where, hey, new offensive coaching staff, who says they don't say, well, Jahmyr Gibbs has clearly got more juice. Why don't we get him the ball more? Right? Like, there's just so much happening within this offense that really just is not in favor of David Montgomery whatsoever. So yeah, Cameron, I don't know where you're at. I don't know where David Montgomery came out in your projections, but yeah, he's outside of my top 30 running backs too.
Yeah, I mean, you guys named it. They had 68 touchdowns as a team last year.
Yeah, they're not coming close to hitting that again.
For the reference, the Vikings had the same record as them and had 44. Right? That's just, I mean, the immense difference over the last, they have played 61 games, him and Gibbs, over the last 2 seasons. They played 61 games combined, and they have 51 touchdowns combined. I mean, that is just such ridiculous numbers. Monty's had 25 in 28 games. It's just to keep that up year after year with everything you've said. I mean, it would be the anomaly. And especially for Monty getting older, with Gibbs looking like Gibbs when he has the ball in his hands.
Oh,
There are multiple weeks in a row where he looks like the most dynamic player in all of football. I mean, it cannot be understated how good he is on the football field. So it's like, how much longer can he keep cutting into Gibbs's work?
Yeah.
Obviously, they've shown that they want to do that, but if Gibbs is outperforming him by a yard and a half a carry almost at times, it's like, how much longer are we going to continue to prioritize Monty in this offense?
yeah, I don't even want to like berate the point much further than it is, because I mean that's the reality for all of us here, right?
Yeah.
We're all in unison. This offense is going to regress. They're not hitting 68 touchdowns again this year. New coaching staff, Jameer. I mean, there's just so much working against Monty. As I already said, I'm a broken record. Ty, you have anything else you want to add? Otherwise, I think we're in a really good spot to move on here.
Yeah, let's move on.
Let's move on because look, the world's probably going to hate me after this episode already because I've been so water and oil. Trevor Lawrence. I'm the biggest Trevor Lawrence stan in the world. First, let me first say,
yes,
with all of these, this is the first round of like we're talking fresh out of the lab. I'm talking like
for me,
like Sunday night. Monday is like the day we're making sure everything is put together, ready to go for the Tuesday drop. Sunday night, fresh out of the lab, Trevor Lawrence is my quarterback 10.
Duval.
Look, seriously, I'm just a believer in Liam Cohen. I want to name the other reality before I get into how much I think Liam Cohen could help this offense. Could Liam Cohen come out and, to steal a common phrase in Nick BDGE, could Liam Cohen just be a cone this year? Yeah. He gets the head coaching job. Things don't go as expected after what he did for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last year. But do we realize how good Baker Mayfield was last year? Like, do you want me to sit here and tell you that Baker Mayfield was the quarterback 4 overall last year? That he was averaging 22.5 fantasy points per game last year?
yes,
That he threw the ball 570 times last year, the 5th most times in the league.
Woo.
That he threw for 4,500 yards, the 3rd most in the league. I'm a believer in T-Law. I remember I was talking to a buddy of mine last year. We do a lot of common NFL hot takes. And he asked me, he goes, Lucas, do you think Trevor Lawrence is like toast? People are ready to throw in the towel. And I told him, I go, no, I honestly think this is a Doug Peterson problem. Because this is the trend we see with Doug Peterson. Comes in hot right away. We see this team almost peak year 1, and all of a sudden, we can't figure it out the 2-3 years afterwards. And Doug Peterson is then can't. So I'm a believer in what Liam Cohen can do with this offense. It's not even that I see like Travis Hunter having a phenomenal season. I think Brian Thomas Jr. is going to be an absolute stud. He's a top 5 wide receiver for me this year. I'm just a believer in what T-Law can provide this offense. I think we see a major bounce back from him this year. And let's not forget like the sneaky rushing upside he provides too. With this offense, you don't really have a strong, Tank Bigsby could be your strong goal line back, but with the ambiguity that's within this backfield, like let's say Trevor Lawrence does add 2 or 3 rushing touchdowns this year, on top of whatever yardage he can pick up with his legs too. Like the guy can scoot. And I'm just a believer in what Liam Cohen can do for this offense after what I saw him do with Baker Mayfield last year.
Yeah, I don't want to steal your thunder, but he's my quarterback 9.
There it is.
And for those of you who think it's crazy, 2022, Trevor Lawrence was the quarterback 8. Oh my gosh, that's so wild.
3
Yeah, so
years
he's
ago.
already done it. He's already been there. He's already seen, like Lucas said, seen it. And all he had was 4,100 yards and 25 passing touchdowns that year. Right? That's not like unattainable. That's not this number that he's never going to get to. He had in 2023, he still had 4,000 yards and 21 passing touchdowns. Yeah, he had 14 interceptions, but we're not going to talk about that. We're going to pretend like it didn't happen.
Well, 21 touchdowns is like,
no, it's not great.
Still what I would expect an average of 24 to 26 touchdowns per year for Trevor Lawrence.
100%. And that's just, and I think too, people are like, oh, Baker Mayfield's so much better. Do you remember? Like Baker couldn't start for Carolina.
Baker was,
Yeah, like I think we forget where Baker came from. Is Baker awesome now? Yes. Do I want to take anything away from Baker now? No.
We were clowning Baker Mayfield.
Yes. It's just Baker was like nobody wanted him at all. And then he started for the Rams and got lucky to get the starting job and then took off. And I'm not saying that's going to happen for Trevor Lawrence, but I'm just saying, like, we can't at the same time say, just because Baker did it doesn't mean Trevor can. Well,
Right.
yeah, he can. Like, it happened 3 years ago or 2 years ago at this point. So, yeah, I'm a believer in Trevor Lawrence, but I have been the last 2 years. So I'm kind of the broken record here. If it happens again, shame on me. I will be off of the Trevor Lawrence train officially.
All Ty has been doing for the audio listeners to service you all he's been doing is sitting in the back, just shaking his head and like, you guys are absolute fools. You're going to look so dumb at the end of this year. There's a reason why Trevor Lawrence is being drafted as the quarterback 19 and not the quarterback 10 right now. So go ahead, Ty. You can go ahead and literally shoot all of our hopes and dreams down.
Well, let's start with the Baker Mayfield talk here.
I know it's a lazy comp to just be like, oh, Trevor Lawrence is the next Baker Mayfield. And that's not what I was trying to say, but
right. He's not.
Liam
he runs more and
lightning
scores more
strike
rushing
twice.
touchdowns. He's better. He's better.
I'm just saying Liam Cohen was able to make lightning strike twice, and that Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense was clicking on all cylinders last year.
Well, I think the reason why, though, is because that same offense had a year to work on things. And yes, it was with Dave Canales, but 2 years of the same offense, or at least the same personnel, is different than what we have with Trevor Lawrence going into Jacksonville with what you called an ambiguous backfield with, yes, Brian Thomas Jr., but a Travis Hunter that, yes, we're expecting big things, but this is the first time in his career where he's going to be playing more offense than defense. So there's going to be some growing pains there. And your offensive line still isn't very, solidified. I'll call it. You do have a couple nice pieces, but it's not Tampa's offensive line it won't be what Liam Cohen made Tampa Bay's offensive line to be last year. So I get the optimism. I understand that this could be the year where we see the 180 with Trevor Lawrence, where things click, but I'm not sure it's exactly going to translate into fantasy points this year. I think if it does turn around and we see, kind of the breakthrough starting to happen this year, I'm definitely going to have Trevor Lawrence closer to my top 12 than the following year. I'm just not sure it's all right away, like it's an avalanche right in year one with Liam Cohen.
Which I can completely understand. But what if I told you can get 90% of Baker Mayfield last year? We're going to use the Stefon Diggs analogy coming back from. What if you can get 90% of Baker Mayfield last year?
It's like the quarterback 7.
Yeah, the quarterback 10. Hey,
I will say.
I'm just messing, but go ahead, Cameron.
Counterpoint to Ty. Baker Mayfield was the quarterback 10 year one in that Tampa offense. So, boom.
Well, overall, look, geez, should I really pull
no,
give them a look behind the curtain?
We don't talk points per game here. We just talk overall. He was quarterback 10.
Final answer.
Points per game is first.
Someone mute Ty. Opposing opinion.
Oh, wow.
Get him out of here.
Quarterback 21 in points per game. All right.
Yeah,
but
right,
still,
right.
quarterback 10 overall. That's all people care about at the end of the day.
I'm still a believer in Trevor Lawrence, the talent. I'm a believer in the weapons he has around him. Yes, Travis Hunter, first time playing more offense than defense, but gosh, what he put out on film, what they basically Colorado was just feeding him off of the sideline without like actually running through each of the plays. I mean, Trevor Lawrence just has so much high potential talent around him where if he fails, like I really hate to say it's more of an indictment on Liam Cohen, but maybe it actually is on Trevor Lawrence at that point. So this is the best situation I think he's been in since they hired Doug Peterson. And this to me screams substantially better than what Doug Peterson was working with. So I'll leave it at that. We'll move on to our final clump of projections, that we have been shocked by after our initial round of projections. Said projections twice, but I'm off my game today. Cameron, talk about Jordan Addison, because wide receiver 46. Is this with or without a potential suspension baked in?
This is without a potential suspension baked in. This is.
Oh boy,
I baked mine in already.
No,
so
I have not.
I did too.
I I'm a believer in TJ Hawkinson.
You
am.
and me both.
I also think this offense throws the ball less than they did last year. I am not betting on the same jump that they just had with Sam Darnold. I'm assuming that 35 passing touchdowns isn't going to happen again. I'm assuming that, Hawkinson is going to cut into his target share a little bit more. Jordan Addison's been awesome. But at the same time, Jordan Addison has not hit 1,000 receiving yards in a season. Jordan Addison has not had 110 targets in a season. And to just continue to think that, hey, he's going to take this jump, I just don't know that it's going to happen with Hawkinson coming back healthy, especially watching the way that McCarthy used Colson Loveland in college, the way we know rookie quarterbacks tend to throw to tight ends. That makes me think that in this offense, that Hawkinson's going to be that wide receiver too. And the biggest change, though, for me overall is I still have Addison, almost 70 receptions, 850 yards. But I have him at 6 touchdowns instead of the 9 or 10 that we've seen the last 2 seasons. And now if you drop him from 9 touchdowns last year to 6, all of a sudden you see that, hey, he's sitting at the wide receiver 36 in points per game. So we see this drop, and obviously, it looks worse because we're projecting everybody stays healthy. So to go from 46, 36 really isn't that crazy when you think about hey, if Tua got hurt, all of a sudden Jalen Waddle and Tua drop or Tyreek drop out. There's all those different things. So that's kind of where that number shifts. But for me, that's really what it comes down to is I don't see him taking a step forward in terms of targets because of TJ Hawkinson. And I see touchdowns coming down because I just don't think JJ McCarthy is going to come out and throw 30 plus touchdowns this year.
So I think the thing you need to ask yourself, not you specifically, but the people out there, what Cameron, you look in the mirror, ask yourself a serious question. No, do you think it all comes crashing down for Jordan Addison this year? I think that's the question people need to actually sit and wonder about, because I'm with you. I don't think Jordan Addison is a 10% touchdown rate kind of player. I think this offense does probably want to incorporate TJ Hawkinson back into the fold, much more like he was his first year in Minnesota rather than, last year where he's clearly coming off of an injury. I wouldn't be surprised if Addison's touchdown percentage drastically dips this year, and the Vikings aren't trying to hit on the deep ball as frequently as they are like last year, which, Ty, you're kind of nodding your head in agreement there, which maybe I'll let you chime in then.
The touchdowns is what's the biggest concern for me, because not only, again, TJ Hawkinson, like we mentioned, it's the running game here. Mm-hmm. Kevin O'Connell wants to run the ball. There's a reason why this team went out and not only paid Aaron Jones to come back, but traded for Jordan Mason and paid him as well. They want to run the ball. And so I don't think that we're going to get these high explosive plays from Jordan Addison that can turn into touchdowns, because I think this team can be more methodical in how they move the ball down the field. More red zone touches, at least gives him the opportunity. But I think with how this team has gone about in building out their offensive line and again, building up the run game, they want to run the ball when they get closer to the goal line. And I think if you take, those opportunities that we had last year, they're not going to be the same this year. And that's ultimately going to be what's going to hurt Jordan Addison the most.
So this is the surprising thing for me, though, is that this is without a 3-game suspension potentially baked in here for you, Cameron. I mean, this is so where do you have Addison at then? How big is the fall off here for you? Because those numbers are only going to go down then if he is suspended for 3 games this year.
Yeah. I mean, compared to last year, I only have him with one less reception, 40 less yards, and then 3 less touchdowns. So that's compared to last year. He only played 15 games last year, so you got to kind of keep that in mind.
Yeah, keep that in mind. Yeah.
But it's just, I just, like I said, I just don't see him. 19% target share is still what I have him at. I still have him 65% catch rate. So it's not like I have these numbers just completely falling off. I just don't think they're going to throw it much. And I only have JJ McCarthy projected for 24.5 passing touchdowns this year, which is a rookie quarterback is,
right.
That's a good rookie season. Like Caleb last year had 20 passing touchdowns, and Caleb didn't exactly have a bad rookie season. I mean, he got crucified in the media and everything because he was the number 1 overall pick, but
it wasn't bad. No,
100%. And I have the Vikings scoring 50% more rushing touchdowns this year, which would still put them.
This is the other thing. Yep.
Which would still put them 19th in the league in rushing touchdowns, right? They're going to score considerably more on the ground, and they're still not even going to be league average for me, at least right now. So that's just, I mean, they had 7 and 9 rushing touchdowns the last 2 seasons. Last season, 17 teams had more than 16 rushing touchdowns. 17 teams had more than they had in the last 2 seasons last year rushing the ball. So like, I don't know. I just don't see touchdowns is really what it comes down to. I have them pretty much the same across the board everywhere else. I just don't see the touchdowns coming.
Well, and it's going to be less opportunities for Jordan Addison to score
100%.
touchdowns here. This team is going to throw the ball less this year. I know people want to look at the offensive line and it's like, well, they got JJ McCarthy fully protected now. I mean, you go out and make a trade. That, to me, that's what this speaks more to is, yes, we got to protect JJ McCarthy. My gosh, you made it work with Sam Darnold last year. I know he choked it away in the playoffs. The interior offensive line has always been a need for the Vikings, but when you go out and add Jordan Mason on top of it and bring back Aaron Jones, you're benefiting all components of your offense. And I think the Vikings are just going to flat out run the football more this year. Take the pressure off of JJ McCarthy. Let's not make him play hero ball like Sam Darnold found himself doing last year. Let's go ahead and give some relief to JJ McCarthy. So yeah, I'm with you. Jordan Addison, I think the decline is going to be pretty steep here this year. It wouldn't shock me at all if 3 less touchdowns, it does actually knock him down closer to the wide receiver 40 range like you have him here. Ty, you're going to talk about another quarterback here who it's not necessarily a bounce back because Justin Herbert was a top 12 quarterback this year, but compared to consensus right now where Justin Herbert's going as a quarterback 16, you are well ahead of that.
Well ahead. Just some names that I have Herbert ahead of that are currently an underdog in best ball going ahead of Herbert, and including Trevor Lawrence, who you guys have in your top 10. I've got Herbert ahead of Baker Mayfield.
Oh,
I've got Herbert ahead of our a common favorite here on our channel, Kyler Murray.
What?
I actually might too.
And even
you guys are disgusting.
Well, and even people's kind of favorite kind of secret option at quarterback, I have Herbert ahead of Justin Fields. And Now here's the clarifier. Herbert is in a tier of about 8 quarterbacks that are all separated by like 8 points for me. So
totally, yes.
So a couple touchdowns here or there, like Herbert could find himself closer to 15 than to 10. But I have Herbert towards the top of this tier because I believe that this Chargers offense takes a step forward this year. I have them projected for almost 500 more total yards than last year. Their run game, we've talked about it before with Amari Hampton and Najee Harris, is a substantial step up from J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards. And J.K. Dobbins came through for this offense. So just imagine Amari and Hampton this year. Hello. You drafted Trey Harris in the second round of the draft this year. That not only filled a huge need, but it also puts Quentin Johnson in a role better for his skill set. It's very similar to how I talked about Xavier. Huh? The bench? The bench? What?
Is that Quentin Johnston's role?
Well, what? Hey, man. That was unnecessary.
I'm sorry. I like Quentin Johnson. Okay, I'm sorry.
I know you do. You have him inside your top 55?
Inside my top 12, I think. No, we're done.
Oh, that's why I'd be cocky. Sorry.
Wide receiver 49. So I like
wide
receiver 49. Was a joke was there.
Yeah, it was there. Again, very similar to how I talked about Teteroa McMillan going to Carolina, how that's going to help Xavier Legette. What are you giving me that look for?
No, you are serious. You have Quentin Johnson. That's a shocking projection.
Oh, you're talking about Cam. I thought you were talking about me.
49?
Yeah.
Sorry, not to derail you, Ty, but oh man, I thought you were joking.
Yeah, I had a Khalil Shakir, baby.
Oh.
All right, sorry. We're getting nuts.
Whoa.
No, stop. Is that true?
No, it couldn't be.
No, stop. It is. Oh, you are disgusting. Oh, Oh,
Ahead of Ricky
man.
Pearson?
You should have never outed yourself.
Oh man. Oh man.
Go ahead, Ty. Put a ball. You can come back and crucify Cameron later.
Damn it. Damage control to wrap this one up.
Yeah.
I think Herbert has more passing yards than he did last year. The guy last year, super efficient, only 3 interceptions to 23 passing touchdowns, more passing touchdowns this year. Sprinkle in like a rushing touchdown here or there, and Justin Herbert can very well crack the top 10 again. I'm all in on this Chargers offense this year, and Herbert is just going to be the leading force of this because I think he's a really good quarterback. And for whatever reason, it feels like people don't think that he's a really good quarterback.
Social media quarterback, that makes sense.
Social media. Says the guy who has QJ at 49.
Hey, yo.
I was going to say, Ty, do you love the Chargers offense as much as QJ at wide receiver 49? Look.
No.
That's... We can't get derailed off of that. I'm sorry. I had to make a moment out of that because that's crazy for where I have QJ. But look, if you do believe in this Chargers offense, you have to believe Justin Herbert's going to be at the helm of it. They can't only rush with Amari and Hampton and Najee Harris. Can they do it a lot? Heck yeah, they can. But at some point, you have to, and they will run a lot. That's not to say they won't, but it's the same conversation we had last year of at some point, they have to call a passing play. They just have to. This defense isn't the same unit as it's been in years past. They're going to have to be in games where Justin Herbert needs to throw the football. You've got him an assortment of weapons to make this offense highly efficient, open up the field for him a little bit more. Playing behind at full health, top 5 unit in the league. You got to like Justin Herbert with those odds, with the way, again, probably even more so than Trevor Lawrence, he can scoot too.
Yeah. No, Ty said it, but it's just a giant tier for me. My wide receiver or quarterback 19 is currently 1 point per game away from a quarterback 10, so 17 points apart. Like it's so close to me for so many guys. And so and Herbert's right in the middle at 14. But Herbert throws another touchdown, 100 more yards, and he's my quarterback 10 on the season. So it's going to be very close, and that's kind of what it's going to come down to. And like you said, rushing touchdowns honestly is going to play a huge part in it. If he ends up with 5, it's a fantastic year. If he has 1, then you're kind of like, it wasn't bad. He's not going to kill you with it. But yeah, it's really hard to bet against Herbert because he is so good. And the connection he had with Ladd last season was just like, all right, it's a little ridiculous. This is gonna be a lot of fun to watch. So, if they put up a ton of touchdowns, then yeah, he's gonna move up higher. So that's just what it's going to come down to, is kind of, for me, the split between touchdown and or running and passing touchdowns for them. Is this like every time they're inside the 10, or are they just running until they score, or is Herbert going to get some of those? Because if he does, then I think he finishes closer to that running back 9, 10, 8, 7 range. Wow. I can't count, but I just thrown out numbers.
So here's how I want to put a bow on Herbert. I'm going to ask a question. I want all of us to quick check our projections. How many quarterbacks do we all have projected between 285 to 305 fantasy points this year?
Can we make
that? Because for me, say that again.
Can we make that 310 instead of 305?
You can make it 310. It doesn't impact mine, but yeah, if you need to make it 310 for yours, from 285 to 305, I have 9 different quarterbacks in that tier, where again, it's a difference of 1 more passing touchdown for one of them, 1 less passing touchdown for another, factor in how many yards into that. It's spitting distance, right? So for me, it's 9 between that range. It's a massive tier between 10 and 18 for me.
For me, between 292 and 313, I have 11.
Okay. So a big tier for you there.
Yes.
Yep.
Between 289 and 305, I've got 10.
Sure. Right. So again, within 15 to 20 fantasy points of each other.
Pick your flavor kind of a thing.
Pick your flavor kind of a thing, 100%. I'll bring us home here. I'm not going to call him the most disgusting name we've talked about. I'm just shocked how high Tucker Kraft came back in my rankings.
Wow.
There's nothing special.
Does that say tight end 5?
That's tight end 5.
Oh,
yeah, that's tight end 5.
Oh.
So okay,
Wow.
but let's talk about quarterback tiers for a minute, okay? Outside of Brock Bowers, George Kittle, Trey McBride, Sam Laporta at 4 with 149, Tucker Kraft 148.5, Travis Kelce 144, Njoku 144, Hawkinson 142, Jonnu Smith, that'll change because I haven't updated for the Steelers trade yet. That will be by the time the draft guide's out tomorrow. So maybe I just want to talk about Jonnu Smith. Tyler Warren 135, Evan Ingram 130, Pat Freiermuth, which will also change before tomorrow. I won't even talk about him. But there's not much separating these guys. And when I'm looking at the tight end landscape, I can make a case for Travis Kelce ceding targets to Xavier Worthy with Rashee Rice being back, playing more of that middle of the field. I can make a case where TJ Hawkinson, like Jordan Addison, is still a relatively big factor of the offense. And maybe TJ Hawkinson isn't getting peppered with targets like he was at a top 3 rate at the position 2 years ago. There's a lot of guys in which you could poke holes in here. I just kind of look at it and I'm like, why not Tucker Kraft? Why not? Tight end 12 right now, to me, it's just kind of like a big clump of guys where I think the Packers throw the ball more this year. When Jordan Love was healthy last year, I named it in our last episode where we talked about bounce back players. They were a 3.6 pass rate over expectation when Jordan Love was healthy and in the lineup. I don't know if they wanted to run the ball as much as they did last year, but Josh Jacobs was so good where, we're just going to keep feeding him. I won't be surprised if they get to a more heavy passing attack this year. Tucker Kraft caught 7 touchdowns last year. I only have him statted out for 6 this year. I just have more targets falling his way because I think this team throws the football more. It's kind of as simple as that. And he just kind of fits in with this big tier from tight end 5 to tight end 12, where you can just kind of take whichever one is your fancy.
I will say, you coming at me for my QJ ranking, you got Tucker Kraft in the top 5.
Oh, that's not even close. No.
We're talking top 50. Quentin Johnson was wide receiver 36 last year. All right. But now, anyways, Tucker Kraft, I have only 6 points less, projected for 6 points less than you do. So I'm actually decently the same. It's just I am about a point per game higher on Hawk, Laporta, and Kelce, and then about half point higher on Ingram and Njoku than you are. Sure. So that's what it comes down to. I actually think they're going to be the same. I'm just higher on everyone else, which is why this shifts us down. So I have Tucker Kraft at tight end 9.
Yeah. Again, if I shift Tucker Kraft's target share 1-2%, Tucker Kraft immediately comes crashing back down to the wide receiver 10 to 12 range. So this is a very fragile tight end 5. I want you to hear that loud and clear. But I think the point I'm more so trying to make is why not Tucker Kraft in this range? Why not if the Packers are going to throw the ball more this year? That's all I'm saying, because they sure, you draft Matthew Golden in the first round. Is he a guaranteed alpha? Is he going to make sure Tucker Kraft doesn't hit 75 targets this year? I'm not convinced. So maybe they bring in Luke Musgrave. You could poke holes in this. It's a shocking projection. That's the title of the episode. It shocked me. I'm not saying I fully believe it. I'm just presenting what I found as shocking. That's it. I'm not trying to say I'm 100% right. It shocked me.
You are though. I mean,
I just want go ahead. You all can poke holes in me however you want, but that's
so to come to your aid a little bit. If I were to give Tucker Kraft one more touchdown, he becomes my tight end 6.
See?
Yeah, and if you have one more touchdown on 20 yards, he's your tight end 4, Ty. It's crazy. You guys are crazy.
Well, and get this, if he has 5 touchdowns and 10 more catches and those yards is about 250 yards, it's actually the tight end 1 ahead of Brock Bowers. How about that?
Oh, man.
Within the range of outcomes. You want to talk? Ty's got George Kittle ahead of Trey McBride. You want to talk about crazy? This is ridiculous. If we're out,
is that crazy though?
I do too.
Yeah, you guys are unreal.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought.
I have George Kittle
to Tucker Kraft because you're trying to derail the conversation again. You Mr. Lawrence.
This is ridiculous.
I can see the path for Tucker Kraft. My concern is that this is such a balanced and spread out passing attack that there isn't a guy that can step up. We hope it's Matthew Golden. We hope that it's a Tucker Kraft. And that's where I think your optimism is that Tucker Kraft can kind of emerge out of this cluster of pass catchers as the guy. And it's certainly within the realm of possibility. I'm not so sure. That's why he's closer to 12 than to 5. But again, that is realm of possibility. That is the range of outcomes here.
It doesn't take much for me to tweak Tucker Kraft's projection, and he comes plummeting back down to the 12 to 15 range. It doesn't take much. It's such a tight grouping. I'm just a little bit more optimistic on the Packers passing attack this year. And even if this offense is widespread out, I have Tucker Kraft for 84 targets this year. I know that's 14 more than he had last year, but if I think they're going to throw the ball more, I think he's going to be part of that because I don't think Romeo Doubs is as big of a threat. Jaden Reed's only on the field in 58% of the snaps, basically. I think Tucker Kraft can be a top 3 target earner in this offense. And after what we saw last year, he could easily take a step forward this year. That's all I'm trying to put out there. Again, I'm not saying it's the best projection in the world. I'm not saying I'd defend it with my entire life. That's 100% right, but it came back as shocking. So I'll let the people go ahead and crucify me in the comments down below for how dumb I am and that you no longer want to buy our draft guide with all the time and effort that we've put into it. Look, you can get that is up for sale now. We'll put it in the pinned comment. It's down in the description below as well. $10 to get all of our full statted out projections. You got individual team profiles as well. You got consensus ranks on there. We'll start adding some individual team stats on there as well about specific players. So you'll get a little bit more of our deepest thoughts and insights into our rankings. There'll be a video archive we add as well. Team additions, subtractions. I'm like, it feels like I'm scraping the surface of what I'm throwing out there. So if you want to get your hands on that, is the website official for that, Cameron? Can I name the website, or should I just tell people go to the link?
Website.
fellasdraftguide.com.
Yes.
fellasdraftguide.com. Go get your copy there. $10. Our full statted out projections. We'll be sending out a new version about every 2 weeks or so. So you'll stay updated with our most recent thoughts and projections all the way up to your drafts come mid to late August. All right, that was a big and long and hefty one, but that was a lot of fun, fellas. Make sure you hit our other socials as well, where we'll have even more draft guide insights as well. FFL is on Twitter, the FFL is on Instagram, Fantasy Football Fellas on Facebook and TikTok. If you're just a YouTube person and you just want to hang out on YouTube, Fantasy Football Fellas shorts over there, just like the pants I'm currently wearing, shorts. You can follow our personals as well. It's so dumb. I just want to keep that in now. That's my new. And you think anybody actually listens once we're done talking about the last player?
Yes.
Nobody hears that part.
Yes, everybody does.
Everybody
does.
Everybody.
Let us know in the comments if you're wearing shorts or pants. Yeah, right.
Whoa.
Okay. You're right. A little too personal with that one. You're right. A little too personal with that question. You can follow our personal socials as well. I'm at Lucas Wenzel on X, Camlaw FFF for Cameron, Tyler_Plath for Ty. Later this week, we're going to put our projections to the test and tell you how the first round, and do we dare go into the second round a little bit too next week?
Ooh.
We'll go ahead and we'll tell you how the first round and maybe a little bit beyond the fantasy football drafts should actually go later this week. Thanks for tuning in, y'all. Appreciate you hanging out with all of our shenanigans today. We'll see you next time. Deuces.